So, welcome. We're talking to Mike Hayes, and Mike Hayes is the author of a brand new book about spam. The book is entitled Not Like the Others, and Mike is here to talk about that and maybe one or two other things as well. Hi, Mike.
Hi Kev, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, smashing, thank you.
Now, this is not the first book you've written. A long time ago, you wrote the official biography then of Cheap Trick, which was entitled Reputation is a Fragile Thing.
Absolutely.
It's been a while since you've been an author, and there's more than just a writing link between Cheap Trick and Span, isn't there?
Yeah, I first saw Span supporting Cheap Trick back in 2002. The Cheap Trick book had come out in 1998. Um, and when I started putting that together, I've got it here actually. Um, when I started putting that together, I had no intentions of it being published. It was just for fun, really. And then as the manuscript sort of started to develop, somebody contacted me and asked, would I be interested in getting the book published? And that's what eventually happened. That was 1998, and I'd never had any intentions of writing more books. And I went to see Cheap Trick regularly whenever they came over to the UK and saw them in the States a few times and so on. And when they were over here in 2002, they played three shows, Glasgow, Manchester, and London, supported by this Norwegian band, young guys that I'd never heard of before, called Span. And I'm one of these people that usually does stay for the support act. A lot of people just head straight to the bar until the headliners come on, but I usually watch the support band, and I watched them the first night, and I thought they're really good. I was very pleasantly surprised. And then the next night in Manchester. I was obviously looking forward to them rather more, having seen them once, and they were excellent. They were really, really good. And the third date of the tour was down in London, and down in London they were quite accessible. So we spent a bit of time backstage chatting to them before the show, and then Rick Nielsen of Cheap Trick introduced them when they came on. They had the endorsement really of the crowd through that. And they were very well received and put on a fantastic show. And after that, I was hooked. I went to see them in Norway later that year, and just seeing them do a full set in front of their own fans was just knockout.
But what was it about Span that made you go so all in on this band? What was it about those gigs? What was it about the band's music
Yeah, good
that
question. I often ask myself that really because there are parallels with Cheap Trick in a sense, in that although in later years Cheap Trick have become much more well known, and I think it was 2016 they got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and so that lent a sort of a badge of respectability, I guess, to them. But up until that point, apart from one or two hits, they really weren't all that well known. And so you felt as if you were part of a relatively small group of people who'd found this great band that most other people didn't know much about. And obviously, as they continued to grow Cheap Trick, the fan base grew. But Span was similar in the sense that they only had a very, very small UK based fan group, but the loyalty, the commitment that those fans had to the band was quite extraordinary, which, as I say, drew parallels with me to Cheap Trick. And I suppose what was unique about them in many ways is that they had four very distinct personalities. Each individual had something specific to offer. There were no sort of people hidden in the background that you could never remember the name of or whatever. They were all really, really strong personalities, excellent musicians. And as I got to know them, it was obvious that they were bright guys and, really, really nice individuals. So, because you're part of a relatively small group, they are quite accessible, and you almost become friends and not just fans. So I think that's really what sort of strengthened the appeal.
But just to highlight something there, because you'd seen this band supporting Cheap Trick,
Yeah.
you became a fan. But there's a difference between becoming a fan of a band and then taking a trip to that band's native country, this
Yeah.
being Norway, to actually go and see him. So, what was it about Span, about the music, about this band, that made you become such a fan to go to what a lot of people would say is quite the extreme of actually traveling to Norway to see them?
Yeah, I think it was I mean it's corny, but they weren't like the others, you know. They did have that sort of unique element to them. And as I got to know them, I got to hear an awful lot of unreleased stuff, and the quality was so good that you felt as if you were in on this little secret that you really wanted to share with everybody, you know? And they did have although it was a small fan base, really, really passionate fan base, the music was, I guess that they used to get compared to lots of different bands, but I thought they were really quite unique. Their English was excellent, obviously not their native language. Some of the songs were really quite creative and imaginative. But they had the power, they had the melody. Again, parallels with Cheap Trick, really. Not just a heavy rock band, but melodies, quirky, bit of humor, and that just really appealed. And they were a young band. They had loads of potential, but really there were lots of missed opportunities along the way. So I think it was in 2004 they were really trying to crack America, and they got signed. And then the people who'd signed them decided they'd have a management reshuffle. And the guy who was one of their main sort of protagonists, lost his job. And they decided that they were going to trim the roster of artists. This is Interscope in the States.
Mhm.
And the bands that they'd signed that hadn't yet released albums, they dropped. So Span were about to make it in America, but they hadn't released an album over there. And suddenly they were without a label. So missed opportunities, I think, was, one of the things that, in many ways, ironically, I think it just made people even more committed to them because they felt as if they were they were unlucky. I mean, a million and one bands, I'm sure, could say the same thing. If only this had happened, then such and such. Sky's the limit. But no, for me, I just thought they should have been huge. I thought they were so talented, great songs. But never really made it. And they only really had if you'll pardon the pun, a lifespan of about 6 years in the early part of the 2000s. And in 2005, they went their separate ways.
So, how long was it between that breakup and the band getting back together?
Yeah, that was a fascinating one. 2005, they split up. The singer Jarle Bernhoft had still has a successful solo career. Each of them remained in the music business in one sense or another and has been successful in their own right. But in terms of performing, then the lead singer is the guy who's had a successful career and never really showed any inclination to go back and to reunite. But the guitarist and the later bass player, Fridtjof Nielsen and Kim Nordbeck, had always wanted to try and get the band back together. And it was 2023 when they finally agreed. They were getting to their late 40s. They thought if we're ever going to do this, perhaps now's the time. The lead guitarist had some health issues and thought perhaps, we need to do it sooner rather than later. And to their surprise, really, the lead singer decided they'd give it a go. And they started rehearsing in 2023. Things went very, very well. And the plan was to have a reunion show at the same venue as the show that they'd finished the initial part of their career, which was the Rockefeller Music Hall in Oslo.
Mhm.
That first show It's about a 1,500 capacity venue. That first show sold out on pre-sales alone. So they added a second night. That sold out in 15 minutes. So they decided that they would do one or two more. And they ended up playing 9 shows in 2024, 5 festivals, and 4 headline shows. And they were sensationally good, absolutely extraordinarily good. But 2005 to 2024, 19-year gap. All I was hoping is that they wouldn't be awful.
Mm,
And yet they were better than ever,
mm.
really, really good.
So when did the idea for you to write this book really take hold?
Yeah, that's a good question. Probably like the Cheap Trick one. I'd been interested in all the trivia and what have you. And back in the day, they'd had a very active official website, and they posted up loads of unreleased songs, and it was very newsy. There was an awful lot of information because the band had a relatively low profile. They were not shy about sharing loads of stuff, and I kept it all. So I had sort of screenshots of everything they ever put on the internet between 2001 to 2005. And I started to sort of just pull things together for my own benefit, just for fun, just for interest. So I had some basic raw material back then. And then when they decided to reunite, I chatted to them quite a lot and said that, I'd really like to see, more people become aware of this great band. And I was thinking of putting a book together, knowing full well that it didn't have any commercial potential, but that wasn't really the objective. Didn't expect it to sell many, but I was convinced that fans would be interested. So the band seemed enthusiastic and agreed to participate. So over the course of the period, probably from late 2024, as their sort of reunion tour came to an end, throughout the whole of last year, I conducted hours and hours of interviews, much like this, Zoom interviews by and large, with the band and with a number of people who were, associated with them, sound technician, tour manager, and so forth. Had that all transcribed and then started to edit it into a sort of proper narrative and integrate it with all the material I'd got historically. So they would tell stories about stuff that happened back in the day, and I could then contextualize that with the detail that had been on the website. And it
Uh,
started to sort of coalesce into something, you know, coherent.
so
Uh,
how long did it take you to actually prepare and write the book and get
I
it
guess
finished?
best part of a year.
Okay. So it's available now, and
Yeah.
obviously, what kind of reaction have you had about the book, not just from fans of the band, but also from the band themselves?
Yeah, good so far. I mean, as I say, I don't have any pretensions that it's going to sell bucket loads or anything like that. I went the sort of independent publishing route through Kindle Direct Publishing, part of Amazon, which is an amazing facility. It really is very, very good. I sort of was a little bit worried in case it looked a bit amateurish or something, but it doesn't. It's a very professional looking product.
Well, you have a copy there, so let's take a look at it. Hold it up to the
Yeah, I mean,
camera so
I'm not
people
sure
can
how
see it.
it'll, but that's
Look,
the
that looks really
yeah,
good.
yeah, it's nice. It's nice. So I'm very happy with the way it turned out. Obviously sent copies to the band members, and we launched it in the middle of February, so not long ago. And hasn't sold many, but people who've seen it seem to like it. So
So, how can people get a copy of this book?
if you go into Amazon and simply enter a search span, not like the others, or span book, you should be able to get there. You can order it directly from amazon.co.uk or in America, amazon.com. So obviously you avoid transatlantic postage and all that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
And they do have a few fans over there.
Okay, well, wish you every success with the book. I'm sure Span fans are going to love it. Just give it one more plug by holding it up to the camera so we can all see it again. This is it. Span,
Ban,
not
not
like the
like the
others,
others.
written
Yeah.
by Mike Hayes. Mike, we wish you well with the book.
Thanks very much, Kev. Much appreciated.